Hello, everybody. I hope this podcast finds you well. Today I'm going to talk about a couple of things. I'm going to give you my top 10 Beatles singles, what I think are the top 10 singles. And the first thing I'm going to talk about was this question that came to me a few days ago. What if Ringo and Paul went out as the Beatles, performed as the Beatles? Is that even possible? Is that possible? Now, just hear me out. Just hear me out before everyone explodes. Obviously, John and George are no longer with us. We know that. And you wouldn't even think of replacing them. You can't replace them. So let's have a look. First of all, let's have a look at some bands that have got like 2 original members or less. So first of all, we've got the Stones. We've got Mick and Keith. They're the only original members from the classic lineup. I know Ron Wood's been there for a long time, but he's like the third guitarist that's in there. I know Bill Wyman's still alive, but he doesn't want anything to do with the Stones. So you've got Mick and Keith. They're both touring. They're both making records with great success. Then you've got The Who, Townsend and Daltrey, only original members, still touring, great success. Led Zeppelin did a few shows just with Page and Plant. They got away with it. Kiss, on a lesser scale, have only had 2 original members for over 25 years and we're still selling out. Pink Floyd. Pink Floyd's another band that only did a tour with only 2 original members. No John Waters there even. And Queen. Queen have got 2 original members and they don't even have Freddie. Like, come on. Freddie was Queen and they're doing big business all over the world. So why not Ringo and Paul? Ringo and Paul are way more important than say, the 2, Brian May and the drummer who's left in Queen. So can they do it because there's 2 of them left? Yes, they can do it. But, as with all things Beatles, it's 100 times more complicated. So first of all, we have to look at the logistics. So logistically, do they even want to do it? Like Paul is selling out all over the world. Does he need Ringo? No, I don't think he does need Ringo. And I don't think he does need to call it the Beatles. Because if he did need Ringo, I'm very sure he would have Ringo there. But the big thing is, I guess the biggest hurdle is permission. Getting permission from Lennon's estate and Harrison's estate. Now, that would be a big nightmare. And as we know, all us Beatles fans know that, everyone's got an equal say. If one person says no, then it's not on. And I think it'd be a logistic nightmare. There'd be lawyers. Those estates would want to have a say in everything, in merchandise, song lists, lighting, all sorts of things. And I'd say there'd be a lot of restrictions. Lennon's estate and Harrison's estate would have a lot of restrictions on what they can and what they cannot do, and how they dress, and all that sort of stuff. And in the end, it might just get to Ringo and Paul and they just say, you know what, I'm too old and too rich for this shit. I don't need to do this shit. And also, the other thing I wanted to talk about was fan response. Now, I've spoken to a few people about this and straight away everyone's gone, nah, you can't do it. You can't do it. It's the Beatles. It's blasphemy. It just can't be done without George and John there. It just can't be done. And then I'd turn around and say to them, yeah, but if Ringo and Paul did tour under the Beatles banner and it was a Beatles concert, would you go? And everyone's like, yeah, I'd be there in a second. I mean, it'd be the hottest ticket in town. No doubt it would be the hottest ticket in town. So, when I first thought about it, I was like that too. Nah, can't be done. Then I thought, but if they did do it, would I go? And yeah, I'd go 100% for sure if you could get tickets. So the other thing is, what would it look like if they did? If they got their permission and they decided to do it, what would it look like? Would it be? I've always said that Ringo and Paul should get together, in a small hall that maybe fits 1,000 people and talk and play a few songs. But that's not a Beatles concert, is it? I mean, I'd love to see that, but that's not a Beatles concert. And, another way to do it, I guess, is for them to sit in front of an orchestra and both of them sing a couple of Beatles songs. That's not a Beatles concert either. I think it'd have to be as a four-piece. It'd have to be done, in my opinion, as a four-piece. At first I thought, you could get Jeff Lynne and Eric Clapton on the guitars, but then I thought, nah, that takes away from the Beatles thing. I think it would be better if you just got two anonymous guys that were just kind of standing in the background that provided fantastic harmonies as they played. I think everyone should wear the black suits that Paul wears as a four-piece and get up there. And you could do things like Paul's last tour when he did I Got a Feeling with John. You could do songs like that. You could do Strawberry Fields, Hard Day's Night, She Loves You, Taxman, whatever you wanted. You could have Paul and John pop up and they act as the backing band, just providing the vocals for a few songs. And then McCartney does whatever songs he wants. Ringo does whatever songs he wants. And in the background have that film of the four of them together when they're selling merch. Just have all this new merch, really tasteful, nice new merchandise, new T-shirts, posters, all that kind of stuff. I think it'd be fantastic. I think it'd be great, just as maybe even a farewell. The Beatles farewell tour. Now, in my heart of hearts, I would not be considering it as a Beatles concert. Really, I wouldn't be considering it, but I'd be considering it as a great show. And, how many of us would love to be able to say even, oh yeah, I went to a Beatles concert, or, what's left of the Beatles. I mean, there's only Ringo, there's only Paul. We can, other bands do it. Like AC/DC have only got one original member. They're a massive band, one of the biggest bands in the world. They've only got one original member, and that's Angus, and they're still touring to packed out stadiums. Why can't Ringo and Paul do it? It'd be part of history. It'd be massive. I'd go, but I'd love to know your thoughts. I would really love to know your thoughts. Now, Spotify has a comment section now. So all you people, and I know there's thousands of you that listen to this podcast on Spotify, I'd like to know what you think. I really would like to know what you think. And if you could just drop a little line in saying where you're listening from, that would be awesome. So Ringo and Paul touring under the Beatles, what say you? Okay, the Beatles' top 10 singles, which, these lists always cause some kind of controversy. But before I get into that, I'm going to read the top 10 US best-selling singles and the top 10 UK best-selling singles. Now, depending where you read, there's, slightly different variations of this, but they were all pretty close. And so the US top 10 best-selling Beatles singles are number 10, Can't Buy Me Love. Number 9, We Can Work It Out. Number 8, A Hard Day's Night. Number 7, Hello Goodbye. Number 6, Something. Number 5, Let It Be. Number 4, Get Back. Number 3, She Loves You. Number 2, I Want to Hold Your Hand. And number 1, Hey Jude. Last time I looked at the list, I Want to Hold Your Hand was number 1, but this is a Billboard list that was compiled in 2023. Now let's go to the UK singles. Number 10 is Get Back. Number 9 is Hello Goodbye. Number 8, From Me to You. Number 7, Help. Number 6, Hey Jude. Number 5, Day Tripper, We Can Work It Out. Number 4, I Feel Fine. Number 3, Can't Buy Me Love. Number 2, I Want to Hold Your Hand. Number 1, She Loves You. So the biggest selling Beatles single of all time, and I think this is around the world, and I think this is really worthy of the number 1, is She Loves You. So let's have a look at my list. Here we go. So number 10, I've got Can't Buy Me Love. Can't Buy Me Love was, I remember seeing it in the Beatles cartoon. That's how I really got into the Beatles when I was a kid, when they started playing the reruns of the cartoons in the 70s. And I always loved Can't Buy Me Love, and I think it's one of Paul's best. And I was fortunate enough to see him in concert when he sang it. And, although Paul's voice isn't all there anymore, it was still really good. Number 9, Ticket to Ride. I love the drums in Ticket to Ride. I love the drums. No one can do that drum beat. No one can. It sounds easy, but no one can do it because Ringo is left-handed, and I heard him explain it once before, but I can't remember what he said. It was something like he hits it on the downbeat. And it's just a really good song. It's got the jangling guitar, and as John said, well, he thinks it's the first heavy metal song. Now, number 8, A Hard Day's Night and Things We Said Today. Now, I love A Hard Day's Night. That's another thing I got from the cartoon. I love A Hard Day's Night. The melody's fantastic, and it's really heavy. It's just a heavy song. If you go back to those days and you look at what other songs were in the charts, this is like punk metal compared to everyone else. And I love how Paul sings the high part as well. The remix that Giles Martin did, I was very disappointed in because it had those the bongo drums really high, and I always thought they should be turned down, but he turned them up. But A Hard Day's Night, and Paul opened his concerts for a couple of years with A Hard Day's Night, and Things We Said Today is a great Paul song. That's a it's really different from everything they were doing. It's a dark song, and they actually wanted that to be the A-side. They wanted that to be the A-side because it was different, and they thought, let's put this out as the A-side. And it took United Artists begged them to have A Hard Day's Night on the A-side in the end, and the Beatles finally relented, and it's just a great double A. Okay, number 7, I've got Yellow Submarine and Eleanor Rigby, and I've basically got it there for Eleanor Rigby because Eleanor Rigby is such a great song, and I've mentioned before that I looked at the time of it. It only goes for just over 2 minutes. It's just such a classic that's packed into 2 minutes. I love everything about Eleanor Rigby. I think that's possibly Paul's best song. And I don't mind Yellow Submarine either. I remember singing that in kindergarten. We were all singing that in kindergarten. I didn't know it was a Beatles song, of course, but I liked the song even back then because it was so catchy, and I still like it now. So that's my number 7. Number 6 is Help, and I'm Down. Help is such a brilliant song. Oh, it's just so good. I think it's one of Lennon's best. If you get a chance to go on YouTube, watch it on YouTube. There's a live performance in Blackpool, and it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. Again, I think it was the closing scene or maybe the opening scene of the cartoon. So, I knew every word. I absolutely loved it. And I'm Down on the B-side. I'm Down is just a really good bluesy number. And, of course, there's that footage in Shea Stadium where John's going crazy and playing the organ with his elbow. And they're both very different songs, but they're both really good. It's just a great single. Okay, number 5, Hello Goodbye. Now, I like Hello Goodbye. I think it's a cute song. I think it's a bit of a throwaway. There's nothing I don't like about it. Maybe that Hayla part at the end goes on a bit too long, but I've got it up here. I've got it so high in the top 10 because of its B-side, I'm the Walrus. Now, I'm the Walrus, as we all know, is an absolute classic. Absolute classic. And I remember when I got a bit older and started buying more Beatles stuff, and my friends and I went through our, teenage smoking pot phase. And hearing that for the first time, it just blew me away, just absolutely blew me away. It was like, wow, there's even another dimension to these guys. And I'm not even going to go into the remix that Giles Martin did because, that's terrible. But it's just a gem. It's just a treasure that's hidden away on the B-side of probably one of the most throwaway Beatles singles. Now, don't get me wrong, I love Hello Goodbye, but, compared to I'm the Walrus, it just doesn't compare. Number 4, She Loves You, and I'll Get You. Now, I've spoken in depth about She Loves You. It's a seminal song. I've spoken about how everyone identified pop music at that time with Yeah, Yeah, Yeah. Like you'd have bootleg Beatles merchandise and they couldn't put the name The Beatles on there, but they'd just put Yeah, 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 and you knew who it was straight away. I really think She Loves You is far superior to I Want to Hold Your Hand. I really do. It's like She Loves You is just full of hooks. It's so catchy. It's heavy. It's really, really heavy. And Brian Wilson said when he heard She Loves You, it made him sort of like get his act together. Before that, before that, they were releasing ballads, all these ballads, and he heard She Loves You and he thought, we got to toughen up here. And he wrote I Get Around, which is, another great single. Number 3 on my list is We Can Work It Out, Day Tripper. Love both those songs. A classic double A-side for me. Got to see Paul perform We Can Work It Out. It's just fantastic. I love songs where Paul's got a bit and where John's got a bit. I think We Can Work It Out is, not only my top 10 singles, but maybe even in my top 10, or definitely my top 20 Beatles songs. Day Tripper, always loved Day Tripper, always loved the riff. And I know I rubbish Giles Martin a lot, but that remix of Day Tripper rocks. It just really rocks. He's just got the drums up there. It's just really thumping. I love Ringo's drumming, those little rolls he does which everyone's doing now. I noticed Dave Grohl is doing those little, if you listen closely, you hear these little rolls. He's doing it now. Number 2, Paperback Writer, Rain. Okay, so I think Paperback Writer is one of Paul's best songs, maybe even his best song. And it's just real Paul style. It's got that riff that just basically started a new genre. And Rain, it's got the harmonies, fantastic harmonies. And Rain, I think, is one of John's best songs. It's a great single. It's just a great single. It's I was tossing up between this and the number 1. It was very hard for me. Number 1, Penny Lane and Strawberry Fields. Now, this is John and Paul at their best. This shows the two different styles of each of them. Like, John had that dreamy, arty style going on, and Paul had that pop side of him, which he'd taken to new heights. That has to be not only, for me, the Beatles' number 1 single, but the best single ever released. The best single ever released. And it just beats Paperback Writer and Rain for me, which I think is the second best single ever released. I mean, talk about value for money, buying that 7-inch and getting those songs on it. It's just incredible. Like, I mean, now you have bands that say, we've released our new single, and you go on Spotify and there's only one song. There's not even a B-side anymore, But back then you could get absolute classics, 2 classics on one 7-inch. So I would love to see a list of your top 10 singles. I really would. And see if they're close to mine, or, I know a lot of people will be picking Hey Jude, and some people picking Lady Madonna and all that kind of stuff. That's not my pick. Could be your pick. I would love to see that, and I would love to read your comments about Paul and Ringo touring under the Beatles. Like, do you think that's a good idea? Do you think it's blasphemy? Would you go? What ideas do you have on how all this should look like? Anyway, a short, sharp episode from me, and I will see you next time.